Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right. You are in for a unpacked time here today. Just want to welcome you all. I'm Dr. BJ Ezel, and I guess I'm standing up here because I am a member of the League of Women Voters. I had the absolute pleasure of being one of their guest speakers, and thereafter, I don't know if they coerced me or no, they just asked me. I remember now.
Encouraged.
Yes, encouraged. We want to welcome you to this meeting, and we truly, truly hope that you get something out of it. We are strictly a nonpartisan group since inception. There are 700 League of Women Voters leagues across Florida. Therefore, you would be a member of an elite group. We are never endorsing, and we are nonpartisan. We are never endorsing or opposing particular political parties or candidates. So this is like the safe space to get the information and then make up your own mind about what you're doing. This helps us to message on specific issues and legislation that remains above partisan politics. No politics, although we are a political group. It also promotes inclusion for greater citizen involvement and has allowed the League of Women Voters, and we do have men, to develop a strong, trusted voice for advocacy and educational campaigns. So if you're looking for a place to belong, I've been in Citrus County for 8 years now. Me and my earthly king Thurman over there. That's right. Give honor where honor is due. So with that, we'll get started, and we'll start by way of introducing our board members. And after that, all of our members will stand as well. I'm going to ask the board members to stand so they get a good look at you. So as you have questions and you're able to mingle, then you can do that. So Linda Abels is waving at you right now because she's somewhere other than in this meeting. Overseated is Scott Baldwin, Beverly Brown, that's a good way, Maxine Connor, me, Vicki, Lazilo. No, say it.
Iozia.
Just like it. Dan Hall. Let's stand in the back to the far right. Judy Howe. Rosemary Niles. Nils. Thank you. Peg. I'll just say first names then. And then now here's a different first name. Deborah. Deborah. Thank you. I love the latitude you give me because I knew. And with that, would the other members of this prestigious organization, League of Women Voters, please stand up? So we have a good number, we'd like to add to the number. With that, I believe we're just going to go right to our speaker so we can move on. We'll have a word from our president. This is Vicki.
Just a couple of quick announcements. We have petitions in the back, Scott. Give a wave. Petitions for candidates. We are not endorsing candidates, but in order for a candidate to get on the ballot, they need to have a certain amount of signatures. If you would like to take, we have one for Mo Baird, who's our supervisor of elections, and one for a gal who's running for the Board of Education. If you are in the back and you cannot hear, would you please say something? We want everybody to be able to hear. Believe it or not, we've had people who haven't been able to hear. They've missed the whole thing. So be assertive. Thank you.
Just before I introduce the speaker, this is not my usual attire. although I'm sure that my forefathers from the mainland of Africa dressed not only like this, but they didn't have buttons and things, so they used loops and hoops. But it's Black History Month, and there is a particular group that I'd like for you guys to be familiar with. That group is ASLA. And ASLA, they are the organization that for 98 years, it's the 98th year, that they have produced and sponsored the national theme for Black History Month. ASLA is ASALH, and that is the the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And I say, the last time I looked, I'm Black. So I want to be in on those things that are going on. This year's theme is African Americans and the Arts. So I do presentations, and I was able to do a presentation at my church 2 Sundays ago to kick off Black History Month. And I said to them, tell me some art forms that you know. Now, this is a group of well-educated and some not so educated folks, kind of like this audience, right? And they would name some of the more common arts like music and literature and so forth. And then I said, well, let me throw in a few extra ones for you. So I had for them a list of 34 art forms. Look at you, you're racing through your mind right now, trying to think of the different ones. So here are some that are not so well recognized, but are art forms. So I would say calligraphy. And you know, when you see people with chalk and they're doing sidewalk art, it's actually an art form. My husband will love this one. Comic books made the list. And today I'm dressed level for fashion. And flower arrangements is one as well. Glass art. And the list goes on and on. So the next time you look at something and you think it's art, see if you can also define the art category, and you will be more wealthy for the better. So that's my intro to the 98th year of the Association for the Study of African American History, bringing to us a theme. And across the country, churches and other organizations actually take that theme and they do presentations so we're better informed. So that's truly what that's about. And now, without further ado, because you really didn't come here to see me, I am pleased and privileged and honored to talk about somebody. If I can find it. In another life, my daddy was such a comedian. I think I could have been a comedian. Our speaker has been a champion for the rights of others since she was a child. She's known in Central Florida for her vigorous encouragement to increase voter registration for the handedly registering over 1,200 people. That's a lot of accommodation and talking with people. She has been the voice and the feet that spread the significance of exercising the right to vote by encouraging people to cast their votes on election day. She was a student in Alachua County, Florida, when it actually integrated. She became the first African American to graduate from Gainesville High School in 1965. Her gripping story has been written for elementary school children to introduce them to the civil rights struggles and sacrifices made to make the world a better place. She applied her experiences as she authored Making Them Whole, published in 1990, Beyond Bravery in 2012, and A Brave Little Cookie in 2019. So today, I have the absolute pleasure of also letting you know that there will be a book signing and a request for donation. And that book can be yours. And you can add it or them to your libraries. Without further ado, and with great pride and honor, I give to you and I introduce to you Dr. Lavon Wright, Bracy. Pitch, I get enough. You're vertically channeling, so that might work right there.
Thank you so much, DJ. Just delighted to be in Citrus County. I am a native Floridian, and this is my first team in the big county of Citrus. So I got up very early in the morning, not knowing where I was going, but determined to be on time. So I am in Citrus County. And I need to say thank you to the president, Vicky, and to Jan, to extending me an invitation. I'd like to say thank you for Augustine Holmes for traveling with me this morning.
Yes.
From the big city of Orlando to come to the big city of Citrus. What is the name of the city? Citrus. So, with today, the month being Black History, I am tasked to tell you my story and tell you how I really got involved with voter registration. As I said, I am a native Floridian. I grew up in St. Augustine, Florida. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was a preacher. And my dad was the president of the NAACP in St. Augustine. And Dad said that since St. Augustine is the oldest place in the United States, it ought to be a model for the state of Florida. So he felt that integration should start in St. Augustine. Now, this was in the 50s and this was in the 60s. So Dad would go to school board meetings and he would go to the council meetings and he would say that you aren't spending any money in the Black communities and you need to do better. Well, Dad was labeled a troublemaker in St. Augustine because he would show up everywhere complaining about how the resources in St. Augustine were being spent. The powers that be said to Dad one time, many times really, if you don't stop your advocacy, it's going to affect your family. So my dad was about 6'5", had a strong voice, and he was not intimidated. So the more they told him what he needed to do, the more he did, the opposite of what they told him. So one day, my mom was a reading teacher, and she was an excellent reading teacher. Her principal called her in and said to her, Mrs. Wright, you are by far the best reading teacher I have. But because of your husband's advocacy, today is your last day of work. So Mom lost her job. 4 children, Mom doesn't have a job. So, and Dad is a preacher. Like in those days, preachers didn't make a whole lot of money. And Mom was really the major breadwinner. So she says, what am I going to do? So she knew that in St. Johns County, she couldn't find a job anywhere. So she went to a place called Bunnell. Bunnell is about 45 to 50 miles from St. Augustine. So that kind of messed up our family in terms of in the mornings. Mom had to get up very early in the morning in order to be to Bunnell by 8 o'clock. My dad did most of the cooking for us because mom had to leave her. So mom worked in Bunnell for about a year and a half. She kept telling my dad, stop what you're doing. I don't know how long I'm going to have this job. Well, sure enough, about a year and a half later, the principal called her in and said, Miss Wright, you are by far the best reading teacher that I have. But the school board has said that today will be your last day because of the advocacy of your husband. So mom loses the second job. She comes home and she gives my dad an ultimatum. We need to leave St. Augustine. You need to leave this NAACP stuff alone. And if you don't, I am going to take my 4 children and leave you in St. Augustine to fight the cause on by yourself. So dad knew mama was serious, so he says, well, let me do a few things before I leave St. Augustine. So he and a dentist that lived in St. Augustine, Dr. Haley, began to get in touch with Martin Luther King. So he wrote Martin Luther King a letter and asked Martin Luther King to come to St. Augustine. Martin Luther King did come to St. Augustine, but things didn't get any better. Things got worse. Well, we were still in St. Augustine, but one particular night, the Ku Klux Klan decided to have a cross burning in our house. I was a small girl, but I will always remember that cross burning because it looked like the house was on fire. And my brother and we grew up together. He's a year older than me, but I skipped a grade. And we saw the fire. And during those times, beds were made higher. And so we got up under the bed. And my brother says, you're my best friend. And I says, I'm your best friend. And we just really, literally thought that that would be our last day on earth after we saw what was done by the Ku Klux Klan. Well, my dad searched to find another church where he could go to pastor and where we could leave St. Augustine. He found a church in Gainesville, Florida that would call him to preach. So we left St. Augustine by night. And when we left St. Augustine, my mom says, make sure that the kids were went in the car. She wanted us to be on the floor so that while we left St. Augustine, if the Ku Klux Klan was following us, they wouldn't see us. So now we are in Gainesville. My mother gets another teaching job. She gets another teaching job as a reading teacher. She asked my dad, promise me, you will not join this NAACP and you will not do anything to make the cause better. We want to live as normal human beings. I want my kids to think that they can walk down the street without the cops or somebody following them. My dad said, I promise you, I'm just going to be a preacher and you're going to be a teacher and our kids are going to live like normal human beings. And my mom said, what a relief. Well, 6 months later, and I go into church. And before you go to church, there's a little vestibule on the outside. This lady says, Miss Wright, Miss Wright, Miss Wright. We are so happy. Reverend Wright now is the president of NAACP. And we are going to change Gainesville upside down. And my mom she was very sweet. And she turned pro right in front of my face. She was livid. Wow. And she couldn't wait till church was over. She told my dad, you promised me you wouldn't do this again. You know what's going to happen. I'm going to lose my job again, merely because of what you're doing. He said, I promise you. only going to do it for a year. That year turned into 18, but he promised her that it would only be a year. And after that, I want to do this. And Mom was upset and she thought she was going to lose her job again. Luckily, she did. So my dad goes and surveys and says, what needs to happen in Gainesville, Florida? He went to the school board. He says, this is 1964. Brown versus the Board of Education was 1954. 10 years have passed. There's no integration. What are you going to do? And the school board, being all white at that time, says, we're doing nothing. It's going to take us another 10 or 15 years to do what the Supreme Court has stated. So Dad says, okay. So he files a suit against the Archery County School Board, and the judge favors the NAACP and the suit and says that Gainesville has to integrate the public school system immediately with all deliberate speed. So now Dad says, well, I won the suit. Now what am I going to do? How am I going to get Black parents to decide that they will disenroll their kids from the all-Black school and enroll them in the all-white school? So his strategy was, well, start at high school, because if I start at high school, I have a graduation the very next year. So he knocked on about 500 doors asking parents, would you allow your kids to go to Gainesville High and leave Lincoln High? And out of those 500, he got a 10th grader and an 11th grade parent. The rest of them says, absolutely not. I'm in the 12th grade. My brother's in the 12th grade. I see Dad is just bewildered, upset that he has invested all this time and he only has 2 students. So I said to my brother, I said, you know, Dad is so sad. Let's go to the all-white school. Dad will be so happy. Things will go well and we'll be in the case together. And my brother feels singers. Lavon. I don't care how sad Dad is. I am a senior. I am popular. I'm in the band. I'm in the student council. And I have 3 girlfriends. Why would I leave my 3 girlfriends who love me dearly to go over to a school that I'm not welcome, not going? I don't care how sad Daddy is. So pondered and I thought and I said, you know what? I went to Dad. I said, Dad, I know you need a senior so that there'll be somebody to graduate next year. Here I am, send me. And your dad says, you know what? Lavon, can't tell you Mom. It just won't be good right now. So he says, we have to figure this. So when Dad and I would talk, and Mom would come around and immediately changed the subject. Mom smelled the rat. She said, listen, if you 2 think that Lavon is going to go to Gainesville High, it's not going to happen. Because I see you 2 every time I come around, and then you have to something else. I'm not crazy. I know that's what you're talking about. So Dad gradually had to beg and work with Mom and say, please, we got to let Lavon do this. Says, I can't ask other parents to do what I'm not willing to do myself. And if I can spend time telling other parents why this isn't so important, we have to demonstrate that we can do this in our house. Mom reluctantly said yes. Then 2 weeks before school starts, The FBI comes to the house.
All place.
The FBI says, we have done surveys all over Gainesville. The atmosphere is toxic. They are not prepared for integration of the school system. So I'm here to recommend that we postpone this. And Dad says, I'm sorry. Gainesville had 10 years to adhere to Brown versus Board. They didn't. So therefore, this will happen this year. So the FBI says, well, there are certain things that you're going to have to do in order for us to make this happen. First of all, you have to be willing to take the 3 students to school every day. And my dad says, I'll do it. He says, your daughter has to be willing to not participate in any activities at Gainesville. She cannot go to any of the football games, basketball games. She cannot go to her prom. She cannot go to any class functions where they will congregate. And he says, okay, she'll do that too. So everything that the FBI requested, we said that we would do that. And in order for school to start in August, in order for the 3 of us to go. So the night before school is to start, could not sleep because I did not know what the next day would bring me. I looked at the ceiling for a long time. I prayed, got up early. I was ready to go to school 2 hours ahead of time. Mom got up, fixed me a big breakfast, and I was just so nervous I could only have orange juice, and I just couldn't eat. And Mom said to me, she said, listen, I want you to kill them with kindness. They may not be nice to you, but you be nice to them. And she said, I want you to remember that every day you go to school. I said, okay, Mom, understand. To kill them with kindness. So the first day, all 3 of us are in the car. We have Gainesville police in front of us, 1 behind us. They escort us every day to school. My dad would have prayer with us before we get out, and he would say, have a good day. That first day of school, the 10th grader went to her class. The 11th grader went to his class. And I proceeded to go to my class, and 6 students stopped me and says, why are you here? The student says, we don't want you here. And we are going to make this year hell on earth if you don't go back to where you belong. They spit on me. They called me the N-word. And they said, this is just a taste of what your year is going to be like. I proceeded to go to my class. I sat in the very first row, in the very first seat. And as I sat, the entire class got up and went to the other side. And the teacher says, why are you standing? And they said, I'd rather stand rather than sit by the end. So she said, you don't have to sit by her. You can just stand up. So that day was, I understood what my year was going to be like. Every day I would go to class. When I get to my class, I would find tacks in my seat. Under my seat, I'd find dead roaches, dead rats, dead snakes. And I'd find very nasty letters asking me not to be there. The hardest thing to do during the day was to navigate how I go to the bathroom. I realized that I could not just go to the bathroom when the classes were changing. So I'd have to go to my class, 4 minutes, run to the bathroom, and run back before someone recognized that I was not there. So then my strategy was to make sure I control my liquid intake. so that I wouldn't have to go to the restroom more than one time a day. I got accustomed to the fact that out of 550 students, I knew none by name. No one ever spoke to me. No one ever said good morning to me. It was because my class took a pact and said that they would not be the first class to integrate Gainesville High School. So every day, when my dad was up, he would say, "How was your day?" My response would always be, "I survived." I didn't talk much about what was happening because I didn't want the 10th grader and the 11th grader to know what I was really going through. And I certainly didn't want my dad to know and tell my mom because she would have snatched me out of there. So I just kept it to myself. And then I couldn't tell my brother when I got home because if I told him, he would then tell everybody. And I lived a life that year in isolation because I lost all my black friends because they felt that I felt that I was better than them because I was going to school with the white students. And the white students didn't want me there, so I didn't know any of them. So it was, in fact, the worst year of my life. And I thought that was bad until one day the students saw that I was determined that I was not going to allow them to dictate where I was going to go to school. So one day before the bell rang, there were about 6 white guys that decided to jump me. They beat me profusely. I mean, I thought that was going to be the last day of my life. I laid there on the ground before school took in. And when the bell rang, the bell really saved me because I think it would kill me had the bell not rang. And not one student stopped to see what had happened to me, even though they saw me bleeding profusely. So I waited until everybody was gone, and I went to the principal's office. Blood was everywhere. I says, I've been attacked, and I need to call my dad. And the principal looked at me. I said, I need to use the telephone. And he says, you can't use the telephone. I says, well, how can I get in touch with my dad? He said, not on this phone. And he said, by the way, how do I know you didn't leave home like that? Couldn't see anybody hit you. And if by chance they did it, you ought to know by now you're not well. So across the street was a payphone, and I don't know if you all remember those red places that you would go into the payphone, put a dime in there, and I went in there. And I called my dad, told him that I had been beat. He rushed and came and got me, took me to the only black doctor in Gainesville. And the doctor says, you've been beaten up pretty badly. So he stitched me up. I have stitches in my head from front to the back. I'll always remember that day. And the doctor says, you need to go home. He says, you don't need to go back to school right away. So my dad took me home. I said, Dad, I'm not going back. He said, well, you don't have to go back. I said, this beating is taking the best of me. He said, you don't have to. So I stayed home about 5 days. And then I said, Dad, take me back to school. He said, I thought you weren't going back. He says, well, I said, Dad, I've had a lot of time to think about this. I said, if I don't go back to school, they win. I lose. I can't afford to lose. I must win. So I'm going back to school. And if they kill me, they kill me. But I'm not going to let them win. I went back to school. They redoubled their efforts. They got even worse with the things that they were going to do. And I was able to get to graduation. So when it was graduation time, my graduation and my brother's graduation on the same day, in Gainesville. His is at the black school. Mine is at the University of Florida. And I says, now, I'm not going to graduate. We're all going to go to Phil's graduation. And my mom said, oh, no, not what the hell you've been through. You're going to graduate. You're going to march. And I says, oh, no, not again. So mom said, yes. My dad would go to my graduation, and my mom would go to my brother's graduation. And I get to the graduation, and there are police everywhere. I don't know if the police are there because the students had threatened me and says, listen, if you get the graduation, that's when we're going to kill you. So I didn't know if they had gotten the word or they were there because they didn't want any problems on University of campus. When I got there, Dad says, go on and get in line. I was really afraid, but I just well, there are too many police for them to do anything to me today. I was able to graduate. I was able to walk on the stage without any incident. And I became the first graduate of Gainesville High School. And when I left Gainesville High School, my dad says, oh, go to University of Florida. I said, well, they've only been integrated a couple of years. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go somewhere where I am in the majority and not in the minority. So I went to college, went there determined that had learned how it was when you're silent and when you don't have a voice. I didn't have a voice in high school. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say anything. And I was completely silent in order to survive that year. So I began to do voter registration. Soon as I left high school, even though I could not vote myself, I made sure that everybody that I came in contact with would register to vote. I did that when I was in Nashville in school. I left there and I went to University of Miami, and then I really became involved. I made sure that every student, every faculty member, everybody understood the importance of voting. Everybody, I said, you got to have a voice because if you are silent, that means that you are not participating. You must be able to have a voice. So I began my voter registration campaign out of what had happened to me from my personal story, because I wanted to make sure that I spoke for people who could not speak for themselves, because I understood how it is when you cannot speak because it happened to me. Now, and I was told to speak 20 minutes. I think I'm over my 20 minutes. So that's my story. Let me just tell you briefly how I get to write children's book about this story. I have been telling this story for years to adults. I went to the League of Women Voters in Orange County and I gave them my story. And as I told this story, about 4 or 5 people came to me and says, "You need to write a children's book." I said, "No." So children need to hear this story. So I said, "No." So I didn't think much about it because I says it might be a little too difficult for children. So I said, I can't tell that story. Well, 3 weeks later, I get an invitation to go to an elementary school. And I asked my brother, I said, listen, I've never told this story to children. How do I do this? He says, I'll tell you what, go to the grocery store, buy a white egg, buy a brown egg, go to the school and begin the story and ask the kid, what's the difference in the white egg and the brown egg? And I did exactly what he said. And the kid said to me, oh, Dr. Bracy, there's no difference in they said it's only the outside, inside it's the same. So I began to weave my story with the brown egg and the white egg and told my story to them. And then after I finished that, about 6 or 7 kids says, well, why don't you write a children's book? So then stories, and then other children can have this, to know about the story. So I go home and I tell my husband, I says, see, I told the story, and the kids listened to it, and they asked me, would I write a children's book? And he says, well, they told you that illegal women voters, they told you that then you ought to go and write this children's book. So I wrote this book. What I have done, every book that I sell, I don't make a dime off of it. I give it to scholarship. I have given thousands of scholarships to children who really want to go to school and improve their lives. So that's my story. Thank you for this.
Well, I have to say thank you for coming today. Does anybody have any questions?
I lived in Gainesville for 27 years. I have had the pleasure of meeting Lavon, but when we moved there in 1960, her dad, after Martin Luther King was killed, started a daycare center called the King Daycare Center, and I volunteered there in American Dope, and I taught there my whole career. I talked with Lavon's mother, Effie, and I with her he was the dean at Westwood Middle School in Townsville. And her dad was, I mean, he was, I can't tell you how much he was revered in Gainesville. I mean, Dr. Wright was the most wonderful person in Gainesville. And I remember going to his church and listening to him preach. And their whole family was magnificent. And I want to let you know that Phil, brother of Bob, called Night Riders. It's I think they just said it wasn't available on Amazon. I think I got it from Phil because we're friends on Facebook, and he wrote something to me in it. So if you're interested in this book, you can contact me, or you can discuss Lindy's and allow me to read. It tells of their experience in St. Augustine. And I am so sorry you had to go. The principal and she they just
I'm not calling any name.
Supposed to have such an interesting marriage.
They did.
everything.
Thank you.
And revives how school did the 11th and 10th graders talk about their experiences?
Yes, and theirs was nothing compared to mine because they were not the first, and you know, the parents even protested that they were putting my picture in the yearbook. So there was just so much that happened in terms of me being the first that they tried everything they possibly could to make sure that history was not made in 1965. And, you know, 1965 was significant because it was the year of the Voting Rights Act as well. So they worked very hard to do this.
So the University of Florida was integrated at this time?
Yes, they had integrated, I think, in 1963.
Have you ever encountered any of those fellow students of yours, and have you had any interaction with anybody?
Well, let me just say what they've done. They, the 25th class reunion, when my mom was still alive, they contacted her and says, I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and says, we want Lavon to come to the class reunion. And my mom wanted me to come, and I thought about it. And I said, I know no one by name. I don't know them. And if I come, it will make it an uncomfortable situation for everybody. So I didn't go. The 50th year, they had a email campaign trying to get me to go to the 50th. And I talked with my husband about it, and he says, well, we're definitely going. I just told him, I says, well, I don't want to go. It brings about too many memories. And I don't know who beat me. I don't know anybody by name. And I just think, just me not go. So I didn't go, and they tried on the 55th. But what did happen? The 50th year of anniversary of Brown versus Board, I was invited back to Gainesville High. And I was invited to tell my story. And the kids came up to me apologizing for said, my mama was in your class, my grandmama was in your class. I apologize on behalf of them, what they did to you. So I got a lot of apologies from kids, and that's why it's so important that we talk about our history. Because if we don't, history, it's doomed to repeat itself. And those kids were so appreciative. They had no idea what really happened in Gainesville, at Gainesville High. You go back there now, and it's 50% Black and it's 50% white. Kids are getting along just fine. But history is so important so that they will know that it didn't just happen, that some sacrifices were made. And that it's up to them for us to keep the world looking good, looking better, and being kind to everyone. Yes.
I'm surprised that our illustrious state allows you to speak in schools.
Well, that's the question that you have asked, and I'm going to answer it honestly. This is the very first year that I have not gotten an invitation to a school. I have gotten I've gotten teachers to call me and said, we had one teacher said to me, are you willing to write a curriculum about what you would say so that I can take it to the curriculum specialist and she can take it to the attorney so that we can see if you can come. But you have to stick to exactly what's on the paper. And I just told her I wasn't going to do that. I just could not do that. So until this year, Black history especially, I have been inundated in high schools and in elementary schools. This is the first year I have not gotten any invitation in 55 years.
By the way, that I volunteer this is spring. We have a field trip for 54. And somebody was concerned about someone speaking about the project that we're doing to restore the seagrass in Kings Bay. Because evidently, we encourage kids, or the people who are talking about it, to take responsibility and to speak up about problems in their community and to bring about change. So we are going through the same curriculum review. And for the curriculum we teach to the children, this is not to diminish, but to partner with your issues. That we can't teach anything that's not in the 5th grade curriculum. And to the extent that ties, charismatics, and when they eat, etc., we can't teach about ties because they're not in the 5th grade curriculum. And so my heart is with you. And just to say, I know exactly what you're saying, and your extent is much worse than ours. But we have to really be frightened about what's happening in our education system for many, many reasons. And, you know, I come from New York, and this is really hard for me because it would not, the teachers union would be berserk in New York right now. And I hardly hear anything. And I really sympathize, and it's really important for all of us to speak up across the board and support. I mean, I'm horrible that no one asks you to speak, but not, unfortunately, not surprised.
Yeah. Well, you know, what the legislature has passed, you cannot talk about history that makes people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And my story may make people feel uncomfortable. It's a true story. I didn't make any of it up. It's something that they don't want to hear.
I hate to be controversial, but aren't we people? And we're uncomfortable about it not being talked about either.
It's
They can't fire me. I'm going to church. I have all the curriculum I use when I talk. And I taught at Aquin, so I taught Lucy, children, elders, all races. And there are some churches I've already contacted. I have books, I have DVDs about civil rights. And there's a wonderful new book, I don't know if you've read it yet, called Ghost Boys, where a boy was shot by a policeman and he died. And he had the ghost from maybe Tim. I just sent it to my 11-year-old grandson, sister in Tallahassee. And I'm going to materials to churches and share them with them, like the children. A lot of the children should share, and the adults. And, you know, if you can't do it in the school, do it outside of the school.
Well, this is the League of Women Voters. Yeah, so that's we need to vote. And get people out to vote.
Thank you. I felt it was really painful listening to your story. It was much more painful than I had ever anticipated. But we appreciate what you went through to pave the way for others, because unfortunately it was on your back to open the doors. And on another note, I just wanted to tell folks another example in our community is, the African American read-in that we've always had for 20 years in this county was always held at the college campus, and they donated the space to allow this community event to occur. And this year, because of the governor's and the legislature's position on these issues, they refused to donate the space. And so now they had to move to another facility, to Curtis Peterson Auditorium. So it just to be aware of that. It just can come back in so many, to haunt us and to be difficult in so many ways. But
Well, the League of Women Voters, we like to register people. It's not easy to do that. We're trying to do some workarounds to try to get people to register, but also to educate. And there's a lot to be afraid of. But whenever you get afraid, here's your example of courage.
Anyway, the read-in will still happen. It's just gonna happen at, I think it's the high school.
Yes.
We'll have to make that announcement.
Yeah, and it's gonna be on the 24th. Will still happen. It will still be free. And, we'll still proceed with the read-in. So please feel free to come.
We'll be there.
It's nice to have a voice. That was quite emotional. But I also want you to know that across this country, across these 50 states of ours, there's yet another and many Dr. Bracy's. I hail from Central Florida, huge community. I'm the class of '68 at the only real high school in the world. It's high school. And some of the very incidents that Dr. Bracy, who has her doctorate in education, have gone through, that story is just repeated many times across this nation, many, many times. Things that we can't even talk about. So I'm so glad you're telling your story. Also, I grew up in a household with a mother with an 11th grade education and a father who made it through 5th grade. And there was a time when I would sit on my daddy's lap when he was driving, and whatever, I kept hearing something rattling under the driver's seat. I'm like, what in the world is that? So one day when daddy wasn't looking, I looked. There was a tire iron, and there was a gun. And you can mess with a man, but not his wife, not his money, and not his children, and not necessarily in that order. So we all have experiences. You in this room have an opportunity to not only speak up, but engage with other people of other races, not just blacks and browns, because we all bleed red. With that, I'm going to thank Dr. Bracy, and so happy that you were able to come, and for your traveling partner, Augustine. Bless you as well. With that, you had on your chair a few pieces of paper, I'm sure, and one of those are announcements related to the organization. There is going to be the Great Black American Read-In. It will be at Gainesville High School. It will be held from 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon, and it is free. I would love to see every one of you in that room. It is Sunday, February 24th. Sunday, February 24th. You had a comment? 25th. Okay, I was thinking 25th. Sunday. It's definitely on a Sunday. Yours truly will be doing a reading, and we've been given readings. And I looked at it and I said, boy, this is going to be interesting how I'm going to be able to portray that. So you heard me say a few words today, and if you'd like to hear me and others say a few more words, please come. Also, in April is National Minority Health. But what we say is we collectively are only as healthy as the person who is least healthy. So come out, get an A1C, get your blood pressure done, learn some things that are being done in the community to make sure that not just the minorities, but all of us are more healthy. That would be just most wonderful to do. There's a newsletter that is published monthly by the League of Women Voters. It is also available on our website. You can also email the League of Women Voters, because it seems that either the ink went out, or maybe we just forgot to say the email address is LWV, League of Women Voters, CC, Citrus County, 2013 at gmail.com. So with that, if there are any other comments or announcements from the board or members, please.
Just a quick one, and I think Dr. Bracy made the point of how important her father's work and continued work in staying active in the community is. We have a Today, this afternoon, 4 o'clock, Citrus County School Board meets. Public is always welcome. Board of County Commissioners, second and fourth Tuesday at 1. Library Advisory Board, fourth Wednesday of every other month at 8 a.m. So we have a little list of these announcements. The school board is second Tuesday of every month, same as our meeting. And since I was mentioning it, our meetings are now changing to Wednesdays, in order that more people can attend and live with these community events that are small.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Cassie Connor, Natural Resources Chair. I just wanted to bring to your attention, the members, and last night I sent you 2 action alerts, and, please be looking for them. We've got 2 egregious bills that are moving through committee, in our state legislature. One is an energy bill that would allow, power plants, liquefied natural gas and other gas power plants in any commercial and manufacturing district in our particular, for example, in our county, any other counties, it would, take the place of the comprehensive plan that our county has, for example, our county and other counties. And it would just overrule home rule. We wouldn't have any say as to where power plants or gas pipelines would go. So that one I sent out last night, that's in a committee this morning. It's still moving through committee. So if you see these, there's another one sponsored by the Florida Springs Council that would supersede any state regulations in state parks like Weeki Wachee or Rainbow Springs, where you can't carry a plastic water bottle, for instance, or plastic containers in your kayak because they end up in our waterways. It would supersede all those regulations so that you can now carry any kind of container on the waterway and there's no control. So these things are happening and people don't know about them, which is a pity. So please watch your action alerts. You can have a voice in that, and you can tell those committee members that you don't want that you want your waterways protected, and you want your own county to say where these things go. So thank you very much.
And if you want to get involved, we're always looking for people to get involved with us. Just come up, say hello to me. I'll be glad to work with us.
Yes.
Vicky, Jerry, put a card on your chair about the amendment to limit government interference with abortion. We have ballot position now. We're waiting the Supreme Court to say the language of the intention clear. That hearing just took place until April 1st, but the idea is to be thinking about get out the vote. It's a citizen initiative to get it on the ballot, and the people get to decide. And that's the whole point. So we're gearing up. Everyone needs to follow. Did you want to say something about the luncheon?
If you have not signed up for the luncheon, want to Joyce of the choir. So
And who's speaking at that luncheon, Jen? Who's speaking at that luncheon?
Jerry Mulligan.
Well, as you can see, we are quite busy. Yes, please.
If you are willing to transport people to the homes, doing that.
Nothing quite that. You're going to verify wheelchairs. We think that's a problem. I don't think you can. I thought there was some kind of ruling that you can't do that.
I'll put her information.
Transport somebody with a eligible or something.
So it's been stated that we'll get more information on that. We'll be sure to get that out. Please be able to check the website as well.
Yeah.
So we're still looking forward to having good members, more members. There is a table back there, probably when you signed in. It might have been the huddled masses back there, and you can get a chance to visit Scott and the other folks back there so they can give you some additional information on issues that are currently in the forefront. With that, Madam President, we need a motion to adjourn. And a second. With that, you are now dismissed.